Hello and welcome to this very special episode of Media Dialogues with Storyboard18. A few weeks ago, we were in the Mecca of advertising and marketing, the Cannes Lion Festival of Creativity, speaking to the who's who of the global industry. It was no surprise that top on everyone's agenda was AI and its impact on people and organizations, and the disruptive trends sweeping through the consumer, marketing, and media landscape. I spoke to global leaders across companies to find out what their priorities are and where they see the big shifts happening. First up, in the special episode, we have Raja Rajamanar, the global CMO and president of healthcare business for Mastercard, who gave us his view on AI, its impact and the need for regulation, and why he thinks it should be called augmented intelligence and not artificial intelligence. Listen in. Hello and welcome to CNBC-TV18, Raja. It's lovely to meet you here, especially at the Mastercard Villa. How awesome is this?
I know. I'm equally delighted to be here at the Mastercard Villa. It's the first year we have set up our own villa and all the arrangements here. Very delighted about what my team has done. And it's absolutely a pleasure to have you here.
I'm going to start with something that everyone's talking about. It's a top of mind right now, artificial intelligence, generative AI. You, of course, have been talking about it for quite some time. You wrote Quantum Marketing, a book in which you have an entire chapter dedicated to AI and how marketers can harness those technologies early on and become early adopters. So given your experience, of course, studying the space and your own work in the space, tell me, put on your industry hat right now and tell me, how do you see advertising landscape, the marketing landscape, the media landscape being appended by AI? What are we going to see in the next few quarters?
Yeah, so I think I would divide it into two blocks, okay? The traditional AI and the generative AI.
Right.
Traditional AI has already been there in the marketing field for almost, I would say, 7 to 8 years. And even at Mastercard, we have developed lots of capabilities leveraging AI, including, for example, a digital marketing engine out of Singapore, which was giving us improvements by 4 to 8 times of what we were getting with programs pre-AI, or reducing RFP response times from 7 weeks to 4 hours. So these are the kind of things which we have witnessed, and I know a number of companies as well have witnessed exactly the same kind of improvements depending on where they were deploying.
Right.
So AI is here. Many marketers may or may not realize that they are using AI, but it is already subsumed into how they are using stuff. Now, when you talk of generative AI, this has really brought the salience for entire AI to the top, though people are singly focused on, okay, can I create something by instructions, whether it is text, exactly, prompt engineering has become a big deal and so on. The thing is, overall, this is giving a huge impetus to AI in total, first and foremost. So if in the past, I would say about 8 to 10% of the companies were really using it effectively, that number is going to take off now. I'm talking about traditional AI.
Right.
On the generative AI, there are companies which are rushing in because suddenly life becomes so easy, so simple, you can do everything, and people say, I don't need advertising agencies anymore.
Right.
And some people saying, I don't need marketing departments anymore because generative AI will do my marketing and stuff like that.
And imagine saying that in Cannes.
Exactly, you know.
Right?
It's actually very fascinating how much of hype is there, but the reality is the potential is absolutely mind-blowing, what it can do. And in
when
fact,
you get past the hype.
When you get past the hype. There are two things. They both are profound. On the one hand, what it can enable marketers to accomplish. And I can tell you from my own rough calculations, you can easily cut down anywhere between 40 to 60% of your marketing production dollars through generative AI. That is going to be significant.
That's a very compelling reason.
It's a huge reason, right? Plus the speed to market will actually multiply many-fold. And if it is a large project, like I told in the case of RFP, we were talking about 7 weeks to 4 hours. That's a kind of improvement you will see across the entire advertising and marketing value chain.
Right.
And third, clearly, it's going to become more and more structured. So a lot of marketing today is very gut feel, intuition, instinct,
right.
and psychology, social. All those are relevant and important. But what AI is doing, generative AI particularly, is cutting through it very rapidly and putting a solution in front of you, which your jaw drops. Say, this damn thing looks very, very, very good, so I might as well go with it. So the speed to market will be phenomenal.
Let me just pull on some of the things that you said, especially when it comes to creativity. And I'm asking you this, of course, because we're in Cannes right now. It is the mecca of creativity. Correct. We're seeing fascinating work put up there. I mean, some of it is, there's AI involved. Yep. Do you fear that, number one, creativity is going to get mechanized? And second, mediocrity is free now. Is that something you think about? I don't think it'll keep you up at night, but, is that something you think about as a marketer, especially a custodian of a brand, a global brand, having that technology in your hand?
So,
very tempting.
First and foremost, the way I define to myself and my team and my company, artificial intelligence is not as artificial intelligence, but maybe the more appropriate word is augmented intelligence.
Interesting. Mm-hmm.
It's not machine doing things by itself completely independent of people, but it's machine creating the output that you can work with and take it to a different level than you could have done before AI came into picture, both generative AI as well as regular AI. So I think that if you look at it from that lens, suddenly what you see is it seems to be a major enhancer of what you can do. And that's what I think is very exciting. Mm-hmm. One of the things which we as marketers are very, very, I would say, guilty of is the lousy briefs that we give to the agencies. That's one of the biggest pain points for the agencies. And when you have got AI and generative AI, you articulate much more clearly. You play with the AI and say, this is the kind of thing that I'm looking at. Give it to the agency and ask them to create magic from there on. Mm-hmm. It'll be absolute. So this, I would say, is an augmented briefing process than substituting your agency. If you start looking at something as, I must do it, mm-hmm. it feels like a task.
Sure, yes.
Correct. Mm-hmm. But if you say, I have the choice of doing it, it's very different. In the same way, if you call it as artificial intelligence, to me, it seems to be something which is anti-natural intelligence. But if you look at it as augmented intelligence, that really cracks the equation for me.
Maybe you're onto something here, Raja. We could maybe rebrand AI to augmented intelligence.
I think so.
Yeah, absolutely.
I should go right from here and patent it or copyright
it. I think you should. Let me just sort of shift from the creativity angle of AI, and I'm going to stay on AI for a bit because this is what is changing the industry, and talk to you about what we've seen in terms of regulations also. Unlike social media that came before it, we didn't wait 10 years or 15 years to see the dramatic impact it has had on society. A lot of it a negative impact, right? Before we actually got into putting laws, regulations in place and talking about it. This has all happened very fast in the life cycle of AI. Any thoughts on that with your sort of global view that you have on businesses and marketing? What do you make? I mean, and every country will, of course, have its own path on that front. Absolutely. But what do you make of what's happening in the
firstly,
space?
In my role as the president of the World Federation of Advertisers, we started tackling this already. You're absolutely right. For the traditional internet and the social media platforms and all, it took us quite a while to really get to the regulations and clarifying. And even now, there is a lot of work to be done.
True.
Like when you talk about harmful content on the internet, we have a situation where there is a disagreement on what is harmful content. What you think is harmful might be perfectly fine for me or vice versa. So getting the industry to agree on the definitions of what is harmful content. How do we monitor harmful content? Is it self-administered monitoring or is there third-party auditing? And then getting the social media platforms on board. It's a humongous effort, and we started it about 2.5 years back under the auspices of WFA. And we call it GARM, Global Alliance for Responsible Media. It started moving quite nicely since then, but still miles and miles of ground to cover. Now comes along generative AI. Now here, I think the complexities are multifold compared to the traditional scenario, because everything can be faked so perfectly, it's almost impossible now to tell the reality from what is not real.
Right.
And that is a big worry. Brand safety is one of the biggest things for me. And as a brand custodian, so to speak, I have to really take care of it, or a brand steward. And if there is another brand which is getting in front of consumers, faking to be me, now that consumer and even the digital engines find it very difficult whether that person is real, that site is real or not, and I'm real or not. And I've seen some of the demos of this, they are scary. So both from a survival of the brands and companies perspective, which is more selfish, and also from the point of preventing harm in the society, there is a lot that needs to be done. So what we have done as a first step is, in WFA, we have got together a whole bunch of brands. We got a whole bunch of technology people, and we are trying to sort of have some kind of a roadmap of what we will do. We don't have solutions yet.
Yes.
And also,
it's a start.
But it's a start. But the first big step is the start, which we have done that. Second, we're also working with regulators in many countries, trying to say, because regulators don't understand AI. If marketers themselves don't understand AI fully, how will the regulators understand more than? So you need to really educate them, you need to simplify them and urge upon them how important it is.
We're going to sort of go across continents. We're going to talk about India. If you could just give me some thoughts, your final thoughts on where you see India's space in leveraging this technology leap, right? In sort of defining the path forward, not just for India, but perhaps the globe, and for marketers all over. Just your thoughts on where India stands. Given the digital leap and revolution that we're seeing in the country,
which is astoundingly good.
Exactly.
Which is astoundingly good. So I know one of the big things that India is blessed with is the kind of talent. And also it's all youthful talent, which means they're not going to go away in a hurry. It's not an aging population, but it's a growing and coming up kind of a population.
And a massive one at that.
Massive one at that. And it's a blessing. It's one of the single biggest competitive advantages for the country, I would say.
Right.
And they're wicked smart. Right? India is not short of creativity. They're not short of innovation. I think the opportunity ahead, plus they're tech savvy, right? This is a deadly combination in a good way to win. And I think this is going to be fantastic. And I would be so excited for the country. And hopefully they will, sort of steal the march.
That's great to hear, and I love the positive sentiment in our conversation, because right now we've been sort of swaying between the hype cycle and the fear cycle around AI. So it's a great note to end on. Thank you so much for your time, Raja, and it was lovely meeting you here again at the Mastercard Villa.
Thank you so much, Delshad.
You're watching a special episode of Media Dialogues with Storyboard18, featuring our conversations from the recently concluded Cannes Lions Festival. Next up, we have Cristina Di Zandino, Global Chief Marketing Officer of Diageo, who gave me an insight into the big shifts and trends in the global alcohol beverage industry, and the women shaping the company and its brands. What's happening globally in the liquor industry right now? What are some of the key consumer trends and insights that are informing your strategies going forward, given the amount of change that we've seen in the media landscape?
From the perspective of premium spirits, I think it's a very exciting category. And in a world where we now know socialization and celebration, it's so important. It has always been very important, but now we know post-COVID that people have been craving for it. And in that context, I think this category plays a phenomenal role. In the global space of total beverage alcohol, premium spirits have been gaining momentum for a while. And I think a lot has to do with certain trends that we have been observing for a long time that continue to be very relevant.
Right.
One of them is, we call it a drink better, no more, which I think it's really very important to bear in mind. And I think it's one where we have been working on for a long time. Like, of course, we want people to acknowledge and enjoy the products that we have, which are phenomenal products, phenomenal brands like Johnny Walker and many others indeed. And that moment of preparing your drink or preparing the drink for your family or your friends must be very mindful. And we've been spending quite a bit of time in ensuring that that is the case, and people do appreciate the quality of these liquids. So that's one very important aspect of it. The other one is actually related, but it's a trend towards premiumization. And people in every single category of premium spirits are choosing the higher end of that particular category more and more, in such a way that we see more growth in the higher end of each one of the categories.
There was something very interesting you said recently, and I heard you talk about it. It is the trend of sober curious. Tell me a little bit about that.
I was talking about drinking better, no more. And that big space has an aspect of it which speaks to the fact that in many occasions where people want to socialize in the same way and with the same experience that they would have with an alcoholic drink, but without the alcohol. And we've known for a long time that the alternatives were not particularly attractive to people. Like you could, of course, have water, or you could, of course, have a soft drink, or other things. But that doesn't quite give you the experience that you have when you have, a daiquiri and tonic, for example. But it could be because, it's early in the morning, and of course you don't want that. Or it could be that it's a business lunch and you're going to go work later on. Or, it's your preference not to drink alcohol for whichever reason. Or, you're preparing for a half marathon, or whatever that might be. But you want at that point in time when you and I are having lunch together to have that moment of that drink with a beautiful glassware and that experience that, gives you that sense to feel part of that occasion. And in that sense, we then have developed what we've called non-alcoholic spirits. Right. We also have developed a non-alcoholic beer with Guinness 00. And we spend a lot of time in making sure that the liquids that have no alcohol deliver that same experience that the alcoholic counterpart, such that when you drink Tanqueray 00 with tonic, your experience is the experience of a gin and tonic without the alcohol. And we see that as still a relatively small category, but it is a trend that is going to grow.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Let me again sort of switch tracks now, Christina, and ask you about something that has been a long-running theme for Diageo, which is purpose and ESG. You have dialed up your agenda. Now tell me, if you could just quickly tell me, how have you seen that evolution of, connecting brand purpose to business purpose? Connecting the dots between purpose and profits, because typically what has happened is there's been a lot of celebration of it, but there's also been a lot of criticism of it.
Purpose is so intertwined with the nature of our business. I mean, at the headline of Diageo, we say that our purpose is celebrate life every day, everywhere. And these words that were written when Diageo was first formed have been so important to us. And we've resorted to them even at times of real difficulty. What are we here for? Say, the beginning of the pandemic. Right. It's about celebration. And we can help people celebrate even in these dire circumstances. Yes. And so we helped our on-trade partners, for example, at a time when it was really difficult for all of them. And, for example, we created this program called Raise the Bar, where we gave away $100 million globally to help people adapt to their circumstances. Right. So for me, the purpose and the business are all one. In 2020, we launched we call it 2030 Spirit of Progress. And it has 25 goals, very specific. And it has goals in the areas of sustainability, goals in the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and goals in the area of positive drinking. Right. So those three areas, we've worked as a business, but also with the brands, because at one point in time, I think it's important to recognize that our brands have this incredible power of talking to people directly in a way that is very compelling, at times even entertaining. And therefore, some of the messages will resonate more because the brand speaks that language. To portray the fact that that's so important, it is important for the soil, it's important for Ireland, it's important for Guinness. Right. So we will find ways of connecting to people through the lens of our brands. Indeed, on diversity, equity, and inclusion, we've done an enormous amount of work. So at a total Diageo level, we now have 50% of our executive team are women, and 60% of our Diageo board, that's the chairman and the non-executive directors, are women.
Right.
So it's a very substantial
and especially
presence.
In a male-dominated industry, it
Traditionally
in a male-dominated industry.
But in Diageo, no more. Yeah. Even on brands like Johnny Walker, are a master blender. And that is a very important role. This is the person who orchestrates the beauty of all the casks that we have up in Scotland and decides which liquids are going to be blended to make Johnny Walker. And so it's revered as a figure. And we've had the first female master blender, Emma Walker, and she took over from her predecessor, Jim Beveridge, towards this iconic figure. She had been working with him. She was his apprentice for years, and she's a phenomenal woman.
Right.
She clearly brings other things and a vision of what Scotch might look like for future generations. We have a lot of women in our marketing team, starting with myself.
Yes, you have your India CMO is a woman.
That's correct.
The CEO is a woman.
That is correct. The CFO,
Right.
Lavanya, also from India, is a woman. So yes, indeed, we have a very large presence of female leaders in our organization, and we've been at it for a while. And I do believe it makes a difference. It makes a difference in how we think about the work. It makes a difference in how the brands are presented to people. It brings a different conversation,
Right.
and just the way in which you engage. It's different from what it was in the past.
Let me just ask you one last question on where the India market stands for you in your global scheme of things.
So look, it is a fabulous market. I'm sure you know this well. We were as an executive team in India in last September. We had a fabulous session. There's so much work that is happening in India right now. I was hugely encouraged to see all the work that is happening in the team on innovation. There's even new whiskies being launched, actually in the higher end.
Yes,
of
and a sustainable
absolutely
product, yes.
Beautiful. The work is truly phenomenal all around. So I'm incredibly excited. Of course, it's an enormous market, very large. A lot of people put a lot of faith in India in general, and certainly we do, as you know, because
Right.
we have invested in India for a few years now, quite substantially. And I'm really proud of the team. Hina and the team in India, all the marketing
Right.
team are fabulous. So I have really high hopes, and I can't wait to actually go back.
We would love to meet you there then again. Thank you so much for your time, Christine. It was lovely chatting with you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We had many more fascinating and illuminating conversations at the Cannes Lions Festival of Creativity this year, covering everything from AI, the future of creativity, and the future of jobs, to the mega trends upending everything as we know it. Catch them all on storyboard18.com. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more.